Hello, friends. I have for you today an outstanding, unique, one-of-a-kind study Bible. It is not like any ones that are currently on the market, and it is something that should get your attention. I'm talking about the Cultural Background Study Bible in the NRSV translation. We're going to get right into it with some of the fine print on the back, some of the details. You can actually pause it here and look at the fine details if you want. But 10.4 font, 300 in-depth articles, 375 full-color photos, illustrations, and images, key Hebrew text from the Old Testament pointed out. And of course, this has the Protestant canon of the NRSV. It doesn't have the Apocrypha. And it does retail for $79.99, although I have seen it on Christian Book for much less. This particular version is the leather soft. Feels very good to the touch, as you know and you've come to expect from leather soft binding. Now, look at his gold gilded edges. One ribbon, if you're a ribbon person. I don't know what to do for you. You might have to get some added. But this is still a great Bible, and a thick Bible, I might add. And quite a lot of research has gone into this, years, in fact, of study by many, many scholars. Craig Kinnear, you probably have heard of Craig Kinnear, and for his scholarship and the works that he has done. But let me just say that in reading the Bible, especially the New Testament, you need to understand, for the New Testament, when it was being written, all the people had to go on was the Old Testament. You cannot understand the Bible without understanding the Old Testament and understanding Jewish culture. Okay, it's not even, first of all, Jesus was a Jew. Now, I'm just going to keep going through some of these little things here as I talk to you about it, and you can pause along the way if you wish. But you need to understand it's very important for cultural context, because think about the story with Jesus and the rich young ruler. You remember when Jesus asked him to, drop everything and come live for me, follow me, right? And he said, I need to go and bury my father first. Well, going and burying my father first is not necessarily talking about his father died. It's actually just kind of a slang way in Hebrew of saying not today. And see, little things like that, little subtle nuances about the cultural context, you're going to miss out on. And those things are littered throughout the Old and New Testament, but you're going to completely miss them as a largely American, English-speaking, predominantly not Jewish culture, right? So this entire book is written in a culture that is almost alien to the one that we live in now. Yet its truths apply to everybody, right? That's what we understand about the Bible. Truths in the Bible apply to everybody. So getting people to understand those truths, however, is another thing, right? You want to be able to convey these truths. Well, in order to be able to convey the truths, it would be wise to understand them to the best of your ability. And to understand the truth in the Bible, you have to understand context. Context is key. Okay, so look at all these book introductions. I've just showed you, 30-some pages of study just before Genesis. And then, of course, there are these articles here laid out. Look at all the commentary. Look, commentary. And this is not going to be like commentary that is in any other study Bible. This is extremely laser-focused commentary on the cultural context and the background for the Jewish culture, the New Testament, the Roman culture. Of course, says the New Testament is written in Greek. So there's going to be a lot of Greek influence, right? And on it goes. The captivity in Babylon, right? And the culture of Babylon. Daniel, when he's writing Daniel, he's having to go through all of these things. And we have now, this is what makes this Bible so powerful. We have so much more research. We have so much more archaeological evidence to support what we know about the Bible, and we know more now than we've ever known. And so with the latest scholarship in hand, the latest archaeology, the latest research, we are able to produce things like this, a cultural background study Bible. And this is something that you're not going to want to miss out on, okay? If you love the Bible, you love the Word of God, you need to get this Bible. This needs to be in your library, I promise you. Now, if you're just a lay person and you just read the Bible casually and you just do church, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you don't want to study the Bible. But that's not who I think you are. I think you are a person who wants to know the Word of God. You want to know what it is to be a Christian. You want to know the history of your faith. And in order to do that, I'd recommend you pick one of these up as soon as you can. I honestly can't sit here, and neither do you have the time to go through all of these charts, David's family tree, the historical evidence of different, just Old Testament and New. It's scattered throughout. Book introductions. So long. So full of color. This is hard to find too. Most study Bibles, as famously, the Reformation Study Bible, no color maps, right? No color anything. And this just adds to the value of this Bible, to be honest with you. This value is outstanding. It is worth its weight in gold, I promise you. Cross references for the verses here in the center column. And actually, with even this big bright light, the bleed through on the pages is not quite as bad as some other Bibles that I've seen, even though it is the thin Bible paper. But again, this is just really unbelievable, the amount of content that is packed in here. I'm actually going to jump to the back real quick and show you what all is back here after Revelation 22:21. All right. So we get the index of articles. So, like I was telling you, there's quite a few articles in here written by some of the best scholars, right? So the Red Sea, you want to read an article on that? There you go. Death and Sheol. Right, so the Old Testament, here's another cultural thing for you, okay? Old Testament Hebrew culture did not really have a fully fleshed out idea of an eternal torture in hell. They had death and Sheol. I even remember reading the Psalms. David never says eternal hellfire, torture, right? That concept wasn't completely laid out for them in the Old Testament. They had an idea, but it wasn't fleshed out like it is in the New Testament. That's because most of the descriptions of hell, most of what we know about hell, comes from Jesus. So for Hebrew culture, they have death and Sheol. They have the underworld. They have basically death. And they do know the consequences of it, of course, but not as much as we knew after learning at the feet of Jesus. So that is why you want to get a lot of this cultural context put into place, because it's going to flesh out a lot of things, and you are going to understand both Old and New Testaments quite a lot better. So as we continue on with the articles that are listed, you finally get to the Authorized Glossary, Concordance, which is, I might add, massive. And if you can tell here, this thing is very easy to read. This is a very easily readable Bible because of Zondervan's comfort print, as I'm sure you've seen that in several other Bibles. But the comfort print text makes this a very easy to read. Essentially, everything is bolded, as you can see. Everything has like a bold print to it compared to some of the other Bibles. Now, as you can see, there are the headings that are, much larger and more of a bold impact. But ultimately, everything is got a bold print to it, which is that comfort print. Color maps with, of course, the graph. I love these things, and I love learning about this, and I think you do too, and that's why you want to try and get a hold of one of these cultural backgrounds study Bibles as soon as you can, whether you get the leather soft or whether you get a hardcover. They even have a genuine leather version I want you to get one quickly and learn it and pray God use it to increase your faith.